Frank Williams, where did you get the title of your book, Judging Lincoln?
It was suggested to me by my sometime co-author, Harold Holzer,
Why?
because it is, in fact, a judgment of Lincoln throughout his career, and that I'm a judge myself.
Where?
In Rhode Island. I serve as the 50th Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Rhode Island after serving 5 years as a Superior Court trial judge.
Where did you first get interested in Abraham Lincoln? Do you remember the day?
Yes, well, I remember the grade, 6th grade in the Cranston, Rhode Island Public Schools. Mrs. Taylor, my teacher, directed me toward Lincoln and the Civil War. I had already had an interest in American history.
So what was the first thing you did about trying to know Abraham Lincoln?
Well, it was a matter of my sitting under this large portrait of Lincoln, and there was something in his face that attracted me. I don't know whether it was the compassion or leadership. And my mother had read stories to me from a child's biography of Lincoln a couple of years earlier. So by the time I was 11, I was already hooked on the president.
When did it get to be serious?
I think 13, when I decided to become a lawyer because I realized what a good attorney Lincoln was.
But when in those early days did you say, I really like this guy, and for what reason did you say that?
Almost right away at 11, because it was like the Horatio Alger story. If he could make it, I could make it. My family had a modest living at the time, and we lived very modestly. And it was sort of like what we've coined, or what Gabor Borat has coined, the right to rise. If he could make it, I could make it.
Now, you say in your book that he was a lawyer, a practicing lawyer for 24 years before he became a politician.
Actually, he was both a politician and a lawyer. He was a politician before he became an attorney, but he had those two careers that were inextricably entwined.
How many cases did he find before a court?
Well, we think 5,000 cases as a lawyer on the circuit or in Springfield, and over 333 appeals in the Illinois Supreme Court, which is an amazing number of appeals.
Did he ever make any money?
Yes, he did. More than most people know. 5,000 for one case, the Illinois Central case with it, which was a tax case. He saved the railroad millions.
What did he ever do with his money, by the way?
Lincoln did not have, to quote his last law partner, Billy Herndon, he did not have the avarice to get, but he had the avarice to keep. Very conservative. And he kept most of his money or saved it.
Now, if you buy your book, and it's published by the Southern Illinois University Press,
right,
what do you get?
Well, you get a number of things. You get 9 essays that based on lectures that I've given since 1984 in many areas, collecting Lincoln as commander-in-chief, attorney-in-chief, how our culture views him, his growth as a man and a leader. And you get to see a good portion of some of the things in the Frank and Virginia Williams collection of Lincolniana. Some 49 illustrations, which is a large number, I think, for a press to put in a book.
I do notice somewhere, or I did notice, that you're one of the big 5 of the Lincoln collectors?
Well, I don't know about the number, but it is a big collection. Some 12,000 books and pamphlets, 10,000 other items, prints, photographs, statuary, philately, numismatics, photographs, and maybe another 20,000 clippings, which you can use as a resource in this research library.
But you say that you're still 30% void. You don't have 30% of the material you need?
30% of the first 500 items in the Monahan bibliography, which came out in 1939, and are the most difficult items, sometimes one page or a small pamphlet to get. But remember, Brian, since Lincoln's life, because there were works about him during his life and after his death, there have been over 17,000 books, pamphlets, and articles written about Lincoln.
So what could you possibly say in this book that would be new?
Well, it would be my interpretation of the man and the leader. I'm fascinated by the leadership issue and how he operated as a president. And many times, I wonder about this in my own position as a judge, how you would face crises. And, I have them. We all have them in leadership positions. And it's a great comfort to me to know that here's a man who is the quintessential American from humble beginnings, only 1 year's education in blab schools, who could rise to become the President of the United States and lead us through Civil War.
Now, I asked this question for the obvious reason, because most of what you say in here is positive. Is there anything about Abraham Lincoln you don't like?
Yes, because each of us have a dark side and a light side, and Lincoln had a dark side too. He had a temper. Most people don't know that. Fortunately for us and himself, he was able to keep it in check most of the time. I think his views on race are ambivalent at best and racist at worst, and of course this is the culture in which he lived, and we see that, of course, in comments he made at the Lincoln-Douglas debates. But as other scholars have said, he probably would not have won the race for president if he had taken a position more closely aligned to the abolitionist.
Do you ever feel in all you read that people who like Abraham Lincoln kind of dismiss this stuff, and they end up saying, yeah, he wasn't a perfect man, but in the end he did great things?
Well, you know, I think that's true in past generations, but I think in our current generation there's more a sense of reality, that Lincoln really was not a godlike figure, that he was a human being, and he was raised to the heavens after his death, which is unfortunate. He shouldn't be treated as some kind of a votive candle on the shelf somewhere. And that he did have human foibles. He was a hypochondriac. He was suspicious. He misjudged his generals during the war until he himself developed the necessary judgment to retain generals that could win battles. But this is all part of the growth, I think, of a human being in the first instance and a leader in the second.
We ask our Richard Hall, our photographer, who works a lot on the book area, to go to your home. For very soon they're going to see, for obvious reasons. Where do you live? And we'll show.
Well, I live in southern Rhode Island, in Hope Valley, near the Connecticut border.
And if somebody comes to visit here, how much Lincoln are they going to see?
Well, they're going to see a great deal. The more valuable material I keep in the vault, of course, for obvious reasons. Many of the prints, statuary, many of the books, Lincoln books, and I think we're about to go into the Lincoln Library. There's another library called Civil War and Collateral. This is the front hallway with Lincoln prints and cartoons. I'm very much infatuated with editorial cartoonists, and they're always, of course, using Lincoln as a foil.
Where are we going?
We're now going down to the Civil War and Collateral collection.
This is all in your home?
All in my home.
How many items?
About 12,000.
And is this under guard?
Yes, and there's a Doberman there too.
What are we looking at here?
This is, you just passed Rogers Groups, who was a great genre sculpture of Lincoln's day, and you're looking at a place that needs more bookshelves, for one thing. And of course you see books on carousels and carriages, which represent projects that I'm working on.
Why are you doing this?
Doing?
Collecting.
Well, because I think it's an important legacy. It's not only helped me research, but something that Virginia and I can leave someday to a school which has none, which has no Lincoln and Civil War collection.
What's the predominance of this collection?
Of course, it's Abraham Lincoln books and pamphlets, and it is cataloged, as you can see. We started cataloging it before there was a software program for computers. Whoever gets the collection will have to do the scanning.
What would you say the value of this is in dollars if you were able to sell it all?
I wouldn't have a clue.
Is it millions?
I think so. At least $1 million. This is the tack room where Bob, our Doberman, lives most of the time. And we have what Virginia collects, G-Jaws and Jim Cracks. This is a presentation copy of the Lincoln-Douglas debates. That's our book plate made from an engraving from Fritz Eichenberg, which adorns the cover of Judging Lincoln.
What's the most you've ever paid for anything?
$40,000. This is the presentation. from Lincoln to Mrs. Spencer,